have a quorum of the members, we probably need to start off by having someone call the meeting to order, and then we can kind of get ourselves a chairperson if we want to elect a chair, somebody to lead the meeting. Anybody want to call the meeting to order?
Sure.
Absence of no chair, like call meeting to order.
Awesome. So, Bruce, do you want to kind of take it from here to kind of see if anybody wants to be a chair? I hate this little housekeeping things, but you know, we have to do it.
Do I have any motion to nominate a member of the subcommittee to the position of chair?
Man, we got people jumping up and down.
I nominate Bruce.
I respectfully decline. I have too many chair positions currently.
I think Bruce normally does such a great job. I think I'd like to nominate Bruce.
In response, maybe I would nominate Mr. Reynolds.
Pete, am I on the committee?
I don't think so.
Who was that?
That was Andy.
Andy, no, you are not.
I didn't think so. I didn't want to be rude and turn it down, but I also, would have to be on the committee first, I think.
So the choices: Bruce Blue, Adam, Brian, Patrick Stallard, or Bruce.
What?
Or-
Adam, why don't you consider doing that? You do a nice job with directing meetings.
No
We need
problem.
a young guy in there.
I'll do it as long as you all help me along, or
That's not a problem.
sure.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay, so do we need to take a vote of that, or is everybody okay with that?
Unanimous.
I didn't think there'd be a fight about it. Okay, I have to find the record button here since my screen has changed.
It's already recording.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Diane. Okay, so if I could, Adam, I just kind of want to get into what we're doing. This is the contracts committee, and our goal here is to work on anything that was in the 5-year solid waste management plan that required some type of contract. And I'm going to pull that up here in just a second.
You want me to pull it up real quick?
Yeah.
Got it?
Oh. Yes, if you could, please.
Sure.
So as I said, we have the task of creating contracts, which if anybody was at the education meeting, I honestly think that this will be the easier of the two to be able to do. Basically, we need to look at the different ones, and we've got 5 of them. We can almost categorize them somewhat. And then really what we need to do is just create specifications. The good part about this committee is that we have a lot of people with experience with contracts, whether it's bidding on it or sending it out. So I think that we have a huge amount of experience here to be able to do this. The questions that we have really is when we look at each one of these is ensuring that we are getting what we want from the contract and putting that into the specifications. So, Diane, can you blow that up a little bit? And I'll just quickly kind of go through each one. Okay, I kind of put the first two in the same category. Hiring a consultant to assist improving local and regional end-use markets for recovered gypsum drywall, concrete, shingles, with the end goal of establishing better economic conditions for mixed construction and demolition waste recycling. Consultants also develop recommendations the waste management can take to prepare the solid waste management area for an influx of spent electric vehicle batteries, with the goal to become a leader in handling EV batteries on the community level. That's the last part. And then the second one, which was hire a consultant to improve local and regional end-use opportunities for the same materials to improve the conditions. And it also has in here, it is hoped this will reduce the estimated 2% impact on the diversion rate of the closing of Voigt Avenue. So one is in the disposal system, one is in the recycling system. That's the way the chapter's laid out. But you can almost see that these two are very, very similar and have the same end, which is trying to set the community up for to be better able to recycle mixed C&D material. So that is one. And slide down.
So Pete, you anticipate one consulting being able to satisfy 13 and 14?
I think so. That's my thought. I would love to hear you y'all's thoughts on it. The one difference there is about the EV batteries, which was added during the process of discussion of the 5-year plan. It might be that it may be as we write the specifications, we can include that, or we find that while we're writing the specifications, we say, man, that just doesn't fit here. We need to maybe do the second RFP on just that. And it could be that we put that one off just a little bit until we get our feet wet, trying to prioritize these things.
Pete, it's Bruce. I'm not sure there's anybody that that knows about recycling electric batteries yet. People are trying.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody in our trade associations working on it that's doing it correctly or can do it.
Yeah, I think it's going to take, the industry is, while it's in its infancy, the recycling part of that, I think will start to come in focus over the next 10 years or so.
I mean,
I think that what we need is to be able to put ourselves in a position to where we can be at the forefront. And I'm not sure how we do that either.
I know it's extremely dangerous, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure who a consultant would be. I mean, I'll be at our yearly meeting next week, so I'll try to do some checking on it.
Yeah, and we have to look at it not just from, we need to look at it from the recycling side of it, but also from the automobile salvage yard end of things. I have already talked with several of the salvage yards through our inspections and saying, hey, how are you guys dealing with the electric vehicle batteries? And all of them are talking, we have to have people trained, we have to have the right equipment, and we have to store them correctly. And I think that is, one of the things that a consultant might tell us is that maybe we need to work on seminars or something that could train people locally, and we can build a knowledge base of people that can recycle, have the knowledge and expertise to do that, which in turn could be marketable to a company that's looking to locate here. I don't know.
Gave you the right answers, I'll tell you that, but I mean, I'll do some checking.
Yep, I appreciate it. The next,
I was just curious, Pete, but from the people that you have talked to, and to the extent there's any significant quantity that has to be dealt with, are local recyclers sending that material out of state to be recycled or processed?
right now, they don't have the volume. And I
Yeah,
don't believe that they have the connections yet. All that stuff is still yet to be developed over time, I'm sure. But right now they're taking it as a one-off, and they're just not getting that many electric batteries vehicles in there. So evidently they're lasting a lot longer than what people thought they would. And but you know, there wasn't. My understanding is they last about 10 years. So look back to 10 years ago, how many electric vehicles were on the road? Not a lot. But man, in 10 years from now,
yeah,
there's going to be a bunch.
kind of what I was suspecting.
Mm-hmm. So it's just trying to get us set up to hopefully attract industry as much as anything else by having putting Louisville in a good position, or even the state in a good position. It seems like the state is attracting EV to it with the Ford plant. I think that's over $1 billion investment in making vehicles that are EVs. And then I think that there was another plant just recently announced that may be a EV battery recycler that's close by. I don't know if anybody remembers that, and I don't know the details of it, but I think that's what it was.
I believe you're correct, yes.
Yeah, but that's what we want to foster, and we want to position Louisville to be ready for that influx and how to handle those things. Number 15, I think most people are fully aware of 15 and how we go about that. I think that it's probably one of the more detailed, but still a lot of details to be worked out when it comes to letting that contract. Let's skip past that one to number 16 and 19. Okay, so anybody remember discussing capture rate studies prior to starting the 5-year solid waste management plan? Okay, so we have talked about this, and capture rate studies are done so that we can get baseline behaviors from the different sectors. And that, you know, that the talk was that we would do it from different areas, one being a subscription area, one being an economically challenged area. Another one was in a high recycling area, or however we wanted to set that up. And I think that that's what needs to be decided when we create these specifications. But we take that the trash and the recycling from specific households, you really break it apart to find out how much is actually recycled versus what's going to the landfill. And we want to get some education on that, and we can learn. An example of that was Denver did capture rate studies. Before going into it, they thought that the best material to focus on was cardboard. But when they did their capture rate study, they found out that it was really aluminum cans, that only 25% of aluminum cans was actually being captured. Everybody knows aluminum's it's one of the more valuable products in the recycling stream. So they changed their whole mindset, and they focused their education on that one thing, which was these aluminum cans. And they significantly increased the capture rate of that material. So that's the goal of these capture rate studies, is to get the baseline data for us to make decisions on how to target the right behavior change for capturing more material. Number 19, was consider amending 51-300 to include a minimum of once per month collection of bulky waste items too large to fit in garbage containers into the basic service package that is required to be offered by waste collectors as a condition of their license. So 51-300 is how we license waste collectors, and it has what is required as far as services that has to be offered, some of the materials that have to be included in the recycling, and the one thing that it doesn't get, it's obviously a very old ordinance, probably comes back really kind of into the 1990s, late 1990s, I would say. Some of you guys been around longer than me, so y'all might be able to answer that. I think this is something that we need to consider. It's not as much, well, it is in the litter and dumping section of the 5-year plan because that is an issue. I know the USD has traditionally had a huge problem with material coming in from other parts of the city to be put out for junk collection in the city. And it was a significant amount. According to the contractors, it was almost 25% of what we picked up. And I'm not saying all from outside of the urban services district. It was coming from one part of the urban service district to another. And a lot of that was being done through, I guess, property maintenance companies that had 150 homes. And what they would do is they would just take from here and just gather it up to the place that has the next junk pickup because they had one in all these different areas. And that's how they got a lot of their stuff picked up. That's going to be different now that we have the large item appointment system. But it also means that maybe that stuff is going to go some other place. Hopefully not on the side of the road. So that is something that we want to consider. Yes.
Is that intended to supplement or replace the current appointment system?
This is, it's not to change that because the appointment system, the large item appointment system in the urban services district is already complying with this.
Okay.
Because it's doing it once a week. 4 large items once a week with an appointment. So how that's done, I don't know. I don't know how the waste haulers in the community feel about it. But it's more of an issue and the focus is on reducing dumping because people have a way to do it. Now, the collectors may tell me that everybody can call and get a pickup of a large item. If that's the case, I would like to know because there's a lot of people out there that says that is not the case. So that is something that we would just consider. Not that we're going to do it, but I think it's a discussion that we would want to have. And even if this board decided that, well, it could do it through regulation, but the board in the past has always preferred to go the ordinance route first. And if it can't go that way, then they would consider enacting a regulation. That was the process that was done during the yard waste change to reusable containers or paper bags. So after going through these, does anybody have a preference on the direction that we go, which one that we work on first, or a preference on how we attack these? I honestly, I think that it will go quicker than the other side of things. than the education side. Most people here can do an RFP specifications. So, input.
Question, Pete.
Mhm.
16, would that be essentially dealing with staff-generated data?
It could be if we had enough staff to do it. We're stretched. And honestly, I think that this takes a lot more time than what we know. Even if you just did 100 households in a certain area, 100 households of waste, that's a lot of waste to have to sort through. I feel better if we bid that out. And I mean, I heard tales of the old committee actually going out and doing this as a group, but I'm not sure that anybody has time to do that kind of stuff nowadays. Sorry.
Did we not? I remember at some committee meeting when I think we were talking about this issue, and I thought you brought someone in that was familiar with doing this. Because he was talking about how and what ways they went about sorting and things like that. Maybe kind of refresh my memory who that was, or because I know Sandra and I were discussing it or talking about it, and they had two different methods of doing it. Does that ring a bell, or?
It does, and if I'm not mistaken, that was somebody from the recycling partnership.
Okay, and that sounds right, or that very well could be.
Yeah, and I believe that is the case. We're not starting from zero on this thing, and it might just be a refresher of what we ended up looking at the previous time. So, and obviously we can go out, and I think Diane, I think at one point you were looking for other cities and their RFPs where they did this. Did you find any?
No, I didn't find any.
Okay.
But that just, I don't know if I scratched hard enough. So I might need to spend some time and scratch a little bit harder.
Yeah, we might need to double up our efforts a little bit on it. And, I think we even reached out to Recycling Partnership to see if they had anybody. We just need to refresh ourselves on that process. But I think that one could be the low hanging fruit of all of them here.
As far as 13 and 14, that's again something I'm pretty familiar with. And I do think that we were starting to make some strides or get some momentum going with the shingle recycling, visiting the hot mix plant. And I feel like that's one that we're not far away from, or we're not far away from, I guess, coming up with what we're looking for in a consultant. Or I have some additional thoughts on some things we might be able to do with that to maybe help that process along a little bit. That's of the 5 that are mentioned, those are the 2 that I am most familiar with, and I feel like we were making a fair amount of progress towards until we kind of got somewhat sidetracked with the 5-year plan.
Agreed. Shingles, just an update where we was at. I think that Scott Quire out at Bluegrass Testing Labs.
Yes.
And the Kentucky Asphalt Association was working together, and they ended up getting what they felt like was a mix that could be used. And we needed to get in with like the city of Louisville's engineers to see if what their thoughts on it was. But there was also a little bit of a push on how it should be bid out. And I think honestly that part is the little fuzzy part to me. Once we know that the mix works and it's good, which I'm 100% confident in Scott Quire's ability. He's a mad scientist out there. I think that this person or whoever we get to do this has got to be the person that can go to the city, the state, and anybody that's letting these contracts out, plus the manufacturers of asphalt, and working their magic into making this a seamless process. I think we're almost there. I think we've done a lot of good work. But so I agree with you, Adam. I think that this one, as far as shingles goes, is really pretty far along. The drywall is probably the one area that we probably need the most help with, in my estimation. I had some preliminary discussions with like the University of Kentucky agricultural group, and with Matt Smith as somebody that could use the material. And there's definitely interest in it. And I will say this, on the academia side, there's the people that are for it, and then there's the people that are not. You know, you listen to some, and it is a great to keep runoff of phosphorus off of farms. You know, which is a huge problem when it gets into the streams and goes on down. Other ones say, no, that study was flawed. So I think that we really need somebody that can help wade through that. I like the shingles. I think it's probably needs to be our first focus. But then gypsum drywall needs to be second. But if we let this contract out, do we prioritize them in our contract and say, we want you to, whoever gets this, we want you to focus on shingles first, drywall second, concrete third. Concrete is an established material. There's outlets for that now. It can be better, but we have it. And what's keeping us from having real good mixed C&D recycling is probably the drywall, in my estimation.
I agree. It seemed like where we left the drywall was an outlet, or essentially finding something or somewhere to go with a reuse for the drywall. And it seems like we kind of, like you said, got stuck there a little bit.
Well, it starts to drive out of my wheelhouse. And, you know, it really needs to, it's not my expertise, and we just need help there. And, you know, the one person that everybody tends to bring up, and I don't know how many people know him, but Scott Smith with Smith Management Group, I think he worked with CEMEX when they wanted to burn used tires at, you know, their facility as fuel. He's got a wealth of knowledge. He's been around a while. He's been with the state, which honestly, that's a good thing when it comes to shingles and trying to get shingles put back into asphalt, because state DOT has a whole lot to say about that. But that's the type of person, not saying that it goes to him, but that's the type of person that we would want to be looking for.
I think maybe as a committee, or if this is something to kind of get started on or get us going, maybe we need to take the three things: concrete, shingles, and drywall, and determine each is is really a different thing, is going to have different outlets, different uses, and maybe start with each one and make a list of where we think we need to be going, what we're lacking in, what, I don't know, like just kind of where we're getting roadblocks now. And then once we kind of have those things listed out, I think that would be the starting ground for a what you're looking for in a consultant, or what you would use in your request for bid. I guess.
No, I think that that's a good idea. If we have, we need to learn a little bit more about it locally. You know, maybe we have some people that have dealt with it a little bit to come in and talk to us about what their roadblocks has been for the individual materials. Maybe we can have the CND, I think it's CEDRA, CND Recycling Association. I think they're out of Chicago. Maybe see if we can't get them to come and talk with us about what we need to be looking for in promoting these materials. You know, we talked a whole lot in the last meeting about not reinventing the wheel. I mean, there's some pretty good information out there. So would that be a takeaway that we would want to look into, is having some people from that industry locally or even nationally to come talk to us about what we need to do before we let an RFP, what needs to be in an RFP?
Oh, is it going to be one RFP for multiple categories? Or is it going, are we talking 3 separate RFPs?
I don't know that we know that yet. Why don't we talk to these people and kind of fill that out? My initial thought would be that we would want it in one RFP, because we, you know, maybe a little bit of a selfish reason. I would rather not do 3 RFPs or more. Maybe we treat it as an industry or a sector. Maybe it's the same people. Maybe it's not. But until we talk to some people, maybe we don't know.
Maybe just getting those ideas out there, and in a format, we can say, hey, this fits together well. I think one company could take care of these 3 issues that relate to both drywall and shingles, or hey, these are 2 totally different things. We're looking for someone to work with the city, state on their mix plan, and the drywall is just something completely different, and we find where other companies specialize in that. I think once we figure out what we're really looking for and what we are trying to get a consultant to do in all 3 aspects, at that point, we would be able to determine, hey, I think one company could fit the bill for all these, or the shingles and concrete go together, but the drywall's in a totally different aspect. I just think that we need to talk through these 3 items a little more in order to determine who or how you look for that consultant.
I agree. I think that we have subject matter experts, and then we have somebody that can get in the door.
Yeah.
So it could be a combination as well. Just that one person that knows the subject matter experts could be it. But unless we could get a foot in the door to get somebody to trust us and give it a try, we're not going to go anywhere.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
Listen, Pete.
Sorry,
Uh,
Pat.
I don't want to take a step backwards, and I don't mean this question in that way, but when you talk about improving local and regional end use markets, and establishing better economic conditions. Are you talking about generating increased demand?
That's kind of my view is ain't no reason to collect it or process it if we don't have a place for it to be used.
Exactly.
And it's kind of, I don't think that we totally ignore the fact that we need to recycle it and how we recycle it, but we have to have demand for the material. And that's where I think that where we ended up on this thing the last time that we were talking about C&D. Am I right with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we've talked about is creating that end users, making sure that the demand is there for that product. I mean, like shingles, for example, I mean, the asphalt plants have to want to use it and have to need that product, or you're in this, basically the situation we're in now where there's just there's no one out there that wants to buy it because there's no incentive or no reason for them to put that in their asphalt mix. But if we can create that demand or create that through whatever channels, then you can in turn start a recycling process. But if there's no end use demand, there's no way you can recycle anything. Or to me, like if the money's not there or it's not right, then you end up with no ability to recycle.
Yeah, that's where I thought we was. The other aspect of this, and it's standing up, basically what we're trying to do is standing up industry where it doesn't exist to a certain degree. And that can be hard. If you suddenly create all of this material and you have one person that can process it, and they get overflowing with it, that's a bad thing. So a lot of cities, what they would do is they would start with certain size buildings that would require it. So you kind of start in its infancy until that industry can build, get good at it, and expand, or other industries want to come in and compete. That's where you can, you really start to make things good, is when you get competition with it. So
So our goal is to encourage economic investment and economic outlay, so that what we do in terms of mixing, to use the word from that specification, is thereby creating a market.
when I'm not quite sure I understood the we're not going to mix it. It's going to be coming in mixed. If I understood that, didn't
Okay.
understand that correctly, I apologize. We have a choice. We have all these different sections. We've got the person that demolishes the buildings. We have the company that needs to haul it. And if you're a company that wants to recover a lot of materials now, you have to have multiple dumpsters for the different materials on site, which is a space issue, which can be a cost issue. Whereas if you can use one dumpster to commingle all of the stuff, and then it goes to one place and they process it and separate it, that's the type of material that we're talking about.
But it sounds
is-
like without capital investment or capital outlay, it's not going to work.
Yeah, we have to make it to where somebody's wanting to do that for sure. And to go back to the shingles, we had industry for that. We had 4 shingle recyclers at one point. We had a lot of material. I mean, it's heavy. It's great for diversion. somebody gets a little bit, I don't like to use the word greedy, but
Aggressive.
so they put too much mix in. And the next thing you know, the roadway is crumbling. And then it falls out of favor. And the whole industry goes down because of that. So it's there if there's an opportunity here for shingles. We just have to see that is for gypsum.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know.
I don't mean to get too far in the weeds, Pete.
Mm.
I think we need to talk about getting consultants on board.
Okay.
I think I could talk, like I said, I'm very experienced in the shingle recycling business. I think I could take a minute at maybe the next meeting and just kind of explain the overall industry, how well it was going at one time and how it has completely fallen off, what reasons I think there are for it falling off, what reasons I think there are that it could definitely make a comeback. Because I think there's a lot of knowledge that the committee could gain just from getting a 10-minute overview of what I know about the business, that would help all of us determine what is the best, the next step to bring that industry back into favor or get it to where the asphalt plants are seeing the advantages of using shingles in the mix again. So I think, again, I think we almost at this meeting just need to kind of set ourselves up with a roadmap for the next few meetings as to what we want to discuss, what we want to try to focus on so that we're not jumping back and forth between things and can solely focus on a few items and move forward with those.
Points, Adam.
Adam, I think you make very good points as well. But I do want to ask everybody on the call, does everyone feel that a capture rate study and C&D recycling are two separate RFPs?
What are the two? A capture rate study, and what was the other?
The talk with regard to shingles and construction demolition recycling?
I think that's two different things. Yes,
I would
think
agree.
that I would think that a consultant or company that's looking through trash recycling, what have you, would be a completely different than someone trying to help our shingle recycling or our drywall recycling process. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is the one part that is kind of similar is I think that you have to know the makeup of C&D material in the local market. So you would have to have maybe not a capture rate study, but maybe a waste composition study of what's coming in, just to have an idea of what you have.
And that could be somewhat of a caveat to the capture rate study as well. So I guess where I was going with it is that I welcome Adam's input and overview for the committee with regard to his knowledge in the industry on the C&D recycling or the asphalt shingle recycling. But it's my opinion that we use a third party for the capture rate study. And I think that's a separate RFP.
Yeah, I think we all appear to be agreed on that. Separating those two efforts.
So what I,
Starting point.
I apologize, Bruce. Can you say again?
I was questioning whether that's our starting point.
You all think that that would require two different meetings? Spend one meeting on items 13 and 14, trying to come up with our best ideas and solutions for that, and then maybe spending an entire another meeting on 16, the capture rate, and then trying to come up with some ideas on that. And then after those two meetings, we kind of look at those two things and say, yeah, we do think this is two totally different things, or like Pete said, there may be a little bit of one that touches into the other. You know, just as far as trying to get some ideas for what we need to do in these future meetings.
I would think that that's a very good structured way of looking at it, Adam. I think you're on the right track.
So do you all, does anyone have a preference on, like, for our next meeting, which one of those two you would like to start with? Because I kind of think before we leave this meeting, I'd like to know which one we're going to look at for the following meeting so that I could, you know, just be as prepared as possible to talk or, you know, discuss those topics.
Well, Pete, if I may ask, how much information do you have about a capture rate study that you're looking for?
Well, we have a lot of stuff that we did for the capture rate studies previously. That's easy to pull up. The part that we don't have is an RFP for it, nor do we have really the direction that we want to go with it. So I have some.
Would that be our starting point, Adam, then? Go off of what we have in hand, because you know, we've got your expertise with regard to the other two topics. But you know, if we prepare the next meeting for the capture rate study discussion and then move into the gypsum drywall, asphalt recycling or shingle recycling side of things, with your overview at the next meeting. You know,
Yeah, I'm fine with that, or I don't think it matters either way. So, but yeah, if you want to plan on trying to focus on the capture rate study for the next subcommittee meeting, maybe Pete could, you know, if there's any information out there that he would be able to get to us prior to that meeting that we would be able to look over and would be helpful prior to that meeting. I think that sounds great.
Pete, did the capture rate study include gypsum and shingles? Any of the information you have?
I think our discussion was mostly focused around residential recycling.
Yeah, and that's where I think there is some differentiation. Because Bruce asked a really good question. Does that fall into the capture rate category also? And what I was not on the C&D committee, but when we left, I attended all those meetings. When we left that, there were two prongs. One was how much, and the second was what does the market bear, and is there a market for that? And I don't know how we can separate evaluating, Adam, both of those things at the same time, because if there's not a substantial market for it, then all those capture rate and the study information would fall on deaf ears. I hope there is a market for that, because as Pete said, that's a heavy product and that's a lot of materials. But I do think we have to have both sides of that equation covered. So we can't just indiscriminately say, we're just going to look at a capture rate study before we know that the industry is prepared to reintroduce, for example, shingles inside the asphalt mix, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because if they say, no, we're not prepared to do that, then
Well,
what does our capture rate information do for us?
I think the capture rate study is in there somewhere. But I do agree with you that during our C&D talks the last time, a lot of the material that was there, we already know is recyclables.
Yeah, oh,
The
yeah, yeah.
metal, the cardboard, and we came down to these three items. Shingles is almost its own item because of the way that it's collected.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But concrete and drywall, would y'all consider concrete separate from drywall?
Yes, I would.
I would.
Okay,
Mhm.
And maybe I'm wrong here and I'm not understanding the capture rate. But I thought when we talked about it in the past, it was almost where we were going to look at taking people's trash bins and looking through what they're throwing into their trash bin
Yeah,
and determine how much of that could have been recycled. And then I think also in that is looking in the recycling bin and determining what's getting in there that shouldn't have been in there, or is that right? Or am I on the right track there?
yes, that had been the focus of the capture rate studies that we had talked about.
and
And
that's where I was going, Pete, that there's a more traditional capture rate study, and that's what is already in the trash and or the recycling at the curb, which can be transferred from that trash container, right, to the recycling container, which gives us a focus of where we need to concentrate our educational focus on to get people to move that product from one to the other.
right,
Yeah, and that to me is what I would affectionately refer to as the more traditional capture rate study.
true, and I
The
agree with
other,
that.
the other with and you know, as you said at the very onset of this, there's a lot of weight and material in these other products. The question is, do we have a market for it, and how would that market be, you know, let's call it, for lack of a better word, monetized? It makes sense because there's an economic advantage of that. So we can push that in to a separate capture rate study. Do you see what I'm saying, Adam? Those two are a little bit different. We don't get any drywall in our, we get very small pieces of drywall in our, if we do a capture rate study right now, in the trash. We don't get any in the recycling. If we do, we have to flip it out.
I would-
But if Pete was saying, like Denver, that found that aluminum cans were a target, holy cow, that gives you an absolute excellent opportunity for education. You know, that people need to do a better job of separating. Though for us, it's really easy. I never throw an aluminum can in the trash. That's one of the easiest products to recycle by far, by far. So
Yeah.
if we found that in our capture rate study, then that would be a, you know, a separate educational focus, I think, for the market.
I feel like that you're going to find very little drywall, shingles, or concrete
Yeah.
in any
Yeah.
of these capture rate studies, because to me, those are almost contractor items. Like
Yeah, they are.
a roofer's bringing all those shingles in. A concrete contractor's the one who's recycling the concrete. The drywall may fall into more of like a C&D or a demo or things like that. But I think as far as finding that just in residential trash, you're not, like you said, you're probably going to get very, very little of that. So I almost feel like those three items are a separate thing versus what people are throwing in their normal residential trash and recycling.
Yeah, and that was where I was going.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. They are two different things, but you can do a capture rate study just on incoming C&D loads.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just a
understood.
capture rate as a method, because it could be that, I mean, we find out that, man, there is in averaging out all these C&D loads coming in, that there is a huge amount of metal in it, and that is you know, that could be a target for us. I don't know. Capture rate study is a tool that can be used on different waste streams. You know, the one that we're talking about down there is residential. You know, it could be a composition, which is a composition study, which is different than the capture rate study, which is just looking at what's in there and what percentages, which we already have done. I don't think that, well, it may change in construction and demolition material. I don't know. Hadn't really thought about that, but eventually, before anybody is going to want to open up a C&D processing facility, they're going to need to know what the constituents are, because they have to know the value or the disposal cost for the individual commodities. So there is a component of waste composition that is a part of that. But that's just a part of what we're doing with this. We're trying to build those end-use markets so that we can drive it by demand and we can get someone interested in putting their money on the table because they feel like that they can make some money on it.
Mhm.
That's where we want to get to.
Pete, can we take a couple of the, unless you think we don't need to, I've got a hard break at 4. Take the last couple of minutes and come up with a to-do list. If we got enough information to do that.
Yeah.
next-
So correct me if I'm wrong. My task right now is number one, to pull up all of the old data that we have on capture rate studies, to give a refresher on where we were at and where we want to go to bring everybody up to speed. Maybe have even somebody else come in to kind of redo that thing from like the recycling partnership to tell us the benefits of doing that and what we should put into an RFP. The second task that I have is ensuring that to set up another meeting where Adam and possibly other subject matter experts can come in and give us input into C&D recycling, maybe nationally, and that's who I was talking about, Cedra, and maybe another person or group here in town if there's somebody that anybody's interested in. But basically the tasks right now are setting up our next 2 meetings for information to be brought to us to help us make better decisions.
Okay,
Everybody have
Yeah, I
Everybody
agree with
agree?
that. And I think like Bruce said, the next meeting will focus on the item 16 capture rate studies. And then the meeting after that will focus on items 13 and 14, the shingles, concrete, and drywall.
Okay.
sounds good.
And
Great.
it sounds like I think everybody's running out of time, or we need to make a motion to adjourn.
Please, if you would.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
So next thing is, what is it? Have a vote? All those in favor of the motion?
All right.
I raised
Aye.
my hand, yes.
So motion passes. That means we're done.
All right.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all.